Oh. Hey, friends. I'm here today through the Syntropic lens to be joined by Yvonne. We've been relating for a decent amount of months now, and I'm just so excited to bring such a beautiful human being that has been championing for the new earth for so long and was into that already before it even had words. And I'm just excited to have a conversation with her today around connecting to our soul, what's really relevant during these times. So Yvonne, hello. So nice to see you.
Hello. How wonderful. My soul is just so excited. It's jumping up and down because we have such wonderful connections. It's just great. And thank you. Just so grateful to have you in my life, even though it's virtual.
Yeah, it's beautiful how the connections have formed through New Earth, and then the Brave New Life community that emerged out of the Reclaim Your Lives sort of epic year of looking at everything, what's going on. And there's this beautiful ecosystem now where we're meeting every week, twice a week, and we just keep showing up because it fulfills us. And now we get to be here as well. Yvonne, I know you have some things that you feel good about relating around, and I'm very open to just see where this conversation takes us.
Just to dive in, I was just thinking, it is ironic because the more that the outer forces are wanting to separate and divide us, the more we find each other and the more connected we become. When you think about all the communities that are establishing all around the world, all these beautiful pods of people looking for their tribe, and you and I, we would never have met. Even though we both share a love for Bali, and we could have walked past each other in the street there and not realized. But now we are connected, and I think that's just so fabulous. The more we try to separate humans from each other, the more we realize how much we need each other and how beautiful we are when we are together. I just love people when they gather and they have this energy of exuberance and love and this new earth which we are creating. So I guess, something that just is coming to mind, and I don't really pre-plan anything that comes out of my mouth, and that sometimes is unfortunate, but I have this beautiful community, Connect to Soul, that began itself about 35 years ago. And I was thinking this morning, what identifies this community that is the core of the new earth that we are creating? And the thing that occurs when people come to it is that they suddenly go, wow, there is no judgment. There is no comparison. There's only acceptance. And the most important thing is there are people who want to hear you. Mm-hmm. Now, I'd like you to speak to that with me, because that is the beauty of the community in Brave New Life, that we open up and we hear people. Because so many people, we're so busy in society that we might talk, but we're not often heard. And the hearing doesn't necessarily come from the words or the ears, it comes from the heart. So
that's so true.
Is what is the foundation of a new community.
It is. And this idea of building communities, externally has led so many to go on heroes' journeys and explore that, and then find out that the inner dynamics of the human interrelating and the relating is something that then needs to be discovered. How we work that out. We can build all the structures, we can make all the plans and make all the designs and have all the rules and whatever, and we don't want rules. Well, that's a rule too. And yet what I found in my study of human ecology, having gone into that quite substantially, is that it's feeling based relating that really allows us to connect on an intrinsic and innate level. And there are natural ways of navigating, natural frequencies that we would operate in. And one of them would be to really receive one another. We're not necessarily talking a lot, although it seems that way, and it's the way that I was programmed, that we speak to another based on the idea that we think what we're telling them is relevant for them. What I've discovered is everything that I basically say is actually relevant for me. It's from me, and it's actually to me. And I've learned how to kind of flip this back onto myself. And in our community conversations with 100 to 150 people being on and receiving each other, it allows for that sacred witnessing to occur, and the transformation or the space for whatever wants to become made realized or transformed or just let go of or just be seen, be heard, be held. All of those virtues that are part of our social ecology as human beings, it's all there. And it's so simple that it almost doesn't have any words to it.
Well, and that, I remember I was listening to an interview of Michael Singer's some time ago, and he said something that has really become a foundation for the community that I like to be a part of, and that is, I want to be with people where all of me is welcome. And that just resonated with my soul so strongly, where all of me is welcome. And for that to be able to occur, we need to actually put ourselves aside when we are relating to another, to make room for the other to be welcome. We need to put our own agendas aside, because what I've always noticed with people when they're relating to each other, they listen to what you've got to say, but while they're listening, they're thinking of, oh, what will I say next? Rather than just sitting back and allowing whatever they say until that's complete, and allowing that expression of whatever wants to, to be expressed out of that person, and then to respond from the heart rather than from the head. And, I was talking to you about that my journey has been over the 35 years consciously traveling from head to heart to soul. And that to me is really the journey that everyone's facing.
It is the true hero's journey that we are here for on earth, and we're born into a societal framework that has us believe and gets us, as I call it, educated to operate on a whole bunch of ideologies and really distorted patterns of orientation, because a lot of them are actually all scarcity based. I was listening to Dana Shiva just yesterday, and I was just soaking up her syntropic syntax, because it's all so simple, and yet to have language to put the simplicity into words, and how to put the entropic and the parasitic and the scarcity based mentalities that we've been programmed with, to put that into perspective in relationship to the natural order, the natural world, the syntropic nature of life, how we would as humans do it naturally, is for me, it's so inspiring. And one of the things that she brought up is that even in the educational frameworks, all math equations and all questions, they're always just based and kind of gearing towards a lack or a scarcity or a need for securitizing. And it's all that kind of underpinning of fear cells and love actually doesn't. And it's a whole journey for us as humans to kind of wake up from that. And then we think that we wake up, but then it turns out that a year later we wake up again, and we wake up again, and then 2020 came around and we woke up again. And I think that we're about to actually have a proper awakening when the true kind of hand of that entropic, parasitic, and compressing orientation becomes much more prevalent and observable even to the layman. And in that, the journey remains the same. It's from our head that was so programmed into a feeling-based place of navigating as a human being love again, finding the life ways of a peaceful and harmonic way of navigating that isn't about defending ourselves or protecting ourselves or and talking about not keeping ourselves safe, but a lot of the defensing is only happening here. It's all just all the programming has only ever happened in my brain, and all the demons that I've ever dealt with have only ever operated themselves as structured belief systems and programmed and conditioned ideas here. So this is where I've slowly been able to feel more and to open up more, and then it becomes the journey to connect with the soul. And I love how you speak to that, and that it's part of what you're offering, because Yvonne, you've been here for a while, and I'd love to hear from you. Here I am, this young kid that had a fortunate opportunity to break free from his home country, and we share the same birth country, which is also very beautiful. Born in a place called the Netherlands, and kind of broke myself free. How has it been for you? Because we just touched on language earlier, and I bet you don't have any language to describe what's actually so rich in syntax.
It's interesting, isn't it? So I was born into fear, because I was born at the beginning of World War II to a Jewish mother and a Protestant father, with the fear of imminent, Nazi warmongers right on the doorstep. And so, when people talk about their early childhood and how, you talk a lot about following younglings, and we'll chat about that later. But I didn't have a childhood. I was born into a place where, because my parents were heads of the resistance, the underground, so we had Jewish people in cupboards and under the floor, and false papers and goodness knows what. And we were constantly raided daily by SS officers in black boots and grey uniforms, ready to eliminate my parents at any given moment that we slipped up. So that was what I was born into. And so for, my early years, it was all about, that's a really, really fearful world out there. And once we came out of that, then we moved to Indonesia, where, of course, Sukarno was running around with machetes and yelling out, Merdeka, behead all blunders and Chinese. And so that was like, okay, this is more of the world. So, look, to cut a very long story short, I was a very intimidated, terrified child. And I had no, I didn't know what it was like to play. I just didn't know what being a normal, a God-given child of freedom was like. So, and so I have to say that I found my childhood when I gave birth to my first son, and he showed me the wanderlust of childhood, and I joined him. And I never gave it up. So I walk around, even today when I'm almost 82, I walk around with my eyes wide open and the wanderlust of life itself. Because that's what children, that's what younglings offer you. They offer you this wide-eyed amazement of, the beauty of life and the joy of life and the the awesomeness of life, and they live in awe, and we give that up so easily. And I made a decision right then and there. I was never giving that one up. And I think maybe it's wasted on children. Maybe we need to all have it when we're older. Because, for me, that is really the greatest gift that children give you, is to take you back to that place of awe, which I, of course, never had as a child. So I sort of took that very much into my heart. I just wanted something that you said before about going into the feeling state and finding love. So when you move from head, which, the head is all about stories and programming and all of that. But when you create that, you go down into the heart and you allow the heart to speak to you. That is an amazing love. But we're programmed to think that love is something that I love spaghetti, right? And I love the forest, and it's always, I love this outside thing. And when people say, I love you, one of the worst things that I keep hearing, and I want to interrupt you, I love you to death. I go, please don't. Love me to life. What's your language? We are so habitual about language, Oh, I love you to death. No, I still have a few years. Please don't do it. So that language. But what I found when I got to my heart, I was still in that place of loving something. Loving me, absolutely, but loving something. And what I realized, that I didn't have a concept of what love was. And that became my question to my soul self, to source, show me love. And I was given this amazing expansion of love is the power of creation.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
It is.
It's the power of creation. And when we understand that and we can feel that really is when we arrive from head to heart to soul. So, a great journey.
Cool, eh?
Which took me to Bali.
Yes, we should definitely be meeting up here at some point when it all opens up again. Because you've been here you've lived here, but you've also.
I lived in Indonesia so I left Holland when I was 9. Went to Indonesia when I was. I went to Indonesia. I came back to Holland when I was 12 and escaped. And then because it was overcrowded, we came to Australia, and that's where I've been ever since. So, my connection to Bali came because my daughter lives in Kuala Lumpur, and they love going back and forth to Bali. And on one of my visits over to see her, my son-in-law said, "Don't unpack, Mum, we're going to Bali tomorrow." And I went, wow. So off to Bali we went, and it was like a homecoming. Something in me went, oh, because the Balinese were like the Indonesians were before the days of Sukarno. And so they were innocent and open-hearted and beautiful. And so I just felt so at home. And I laughingly said to them, well, you buy a house here and I will come and do retreats. And never thought about it again, right? So in 2010, I got up. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of info in the shower. Seems to be open a gateway. And I got, you need to do a retreat in Bali for the 21st of December 2012 and open a stargate and place a crystal and create a grid. And I'm like, good morning.
Oh, that's great. Well, we share a lot of commonalities, and I used to call it my awkward Peter Pan land, because I would receive these undeniable downloads. And if I didn't go somewhere particularly in the Caribbean, but also in Australia where I lived, and here in Bali, if I didn't go to the place where I knew I had to go, or I was guided
Oh no.
this crystal, well, it would just become very mayhemic. And it taught me how to listen, how to
Yeah.
really pay attention, how to really be present, and how really that was partly also the journey from here to here, to follow and attune with creation, and to get out of this kind of ridiculing of my own spiritual nature that is trying to break through by getting me to participate in something that my mind doesn't understand. And it's been great. I've had tremendous adventures with, a lot of crystal activity, I must say. At one point, I was doing a hongi, forehead to forehead, with a 75-kilo weighing master Lemurian seed quartz crystal that was carved into crystal skulls in my own home. So, a very fascinating journeys I've had, and leading me to Bali, where this place has something of great significance that it's holding for not only the people and not only Indonesia, although that's just a continent by virtue of ideas, but really for the earth, because the people here, they do ceremony for their families, for their banjar, for their community, for their island, for their peoples. But they do ceremony for the people of the earth. They do ceremony for the earth. They do ceremony with nature. And it's so beautiful how in tune they are and how non-questioning they are, which to a Western mind really doesn't make a lot of sense. And I've learned to admire the beauty and be in that awe. And I call that the return to the original innocence, this space with the younglings. And it was really my children that helped me actually to re-enable my nature. Because the one thing that I got most, and what I, in the beginning years, there's this like parental love that comes out, but then there's all these belief systems and all the things that I didn't get. Why should they get them? So everything that I was restricted in, and I grew up with some really profound kind of scarcity, lack, and fear-based anxiety imprinting right in gestation in the womb. And it's been really fascinating to untangle that and to discover, wow, the unresolved, whether we are aware of it or not, will remain unresolved until the cells on a natural orientation of what they are wired for, until it's really resolved properly. And not according to what my mind thinks is proper resolving, and punching a pillow, having a cry, and feeling better. No, there's imprinting happening on the cellular, emotional, psychological, spiritual bodysuits of our being. And all of them have to be participating in the process of that reintegration, in my experience, to restore that wholeness and make that state of the youngling, and I call it the Christ child, for that to become alive again, for joy and excitement, and not this sort of serious dark cloud hanging over, like, oh, that could go wrong, that could go wrong. It's pretty much gone. But really, that's been so much because I was willing to go within, as I stopped myself speaking to my children in a way that I would never speak to grown-ups. Like, it's phenomenal what I learned about human ecology, and what somehow in an unspoken manner seems to be so commonplace. But when people think about how they can speak, or how they know people speak, because not everybody likes to own how they sometimes would speak to younglings, they would never speak to their friends like that. And I'm not talking about I love you and I think you're beautiful and you're so great, but there's so many instances where I have, in the proverbial sound of it, lost my shit. And you lash or go over the top, or restrict them, or like they're doing something that doesn't fit my little fruity land of ideas of what all is allowed and isn't allowed. And I learned that if we are all sovereign human beings, then wouldn't it be that we're all equal? And if we're all equal, wouldn't we be relating with each other from a place of open, loving kindness, and we wouldn't go over the top of someone else, and neither would we put ourselves under somebody else. That's all human damage.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
in the reflection of my younglings, I was able to find all that damage within, where that actually came from. Because the question really is, ultimately, to any process of transformation, do you want to keep doing it like that? And I got really real with that within myself, because I was witnessing that I was part and partaking in the transgenerational hand down of trauma.
Yeah.
And my generation, myself, and I know that many others, our parents weren't necessarily able. Your parents didn't even know there was such a thing as trauma. I only learned about trauma about 5 years ago when I released this epic wow, what just happened, from my body, and I started delving so much more into it to rapidly untangle myself from my own cage, my own limitations, my own fear-based programming, to come back to love. And it's a fascinating journey. Now the journey is really about, for me, connecting deeper on that soulful level, where there is, and recognizing that during this time that's actually really quite pertinent. And you mentioned something around what soul was to you when you were a little bit younger, and I just love to hear it again.
Well, because when I awoke, in I think it was the 15th of August, 1987, was the harmonic conversions, and it ripped a lot of people into awakening, and for me, I just woke up with all this stuff. First of all, my life was in crisis, and so I woke up with all this stuff in my head, and it was all everything that's happening at the moment. But it also gave me my mission, and my mission was that I had volunteered to come here to bring humanity to their next phase of existence. We were moving from the Homo sapien to whatever you want to call the next phase, right? And I went, I beg your pardon, was I insane? I can't even get through the day without crying, without wondering how I'm going to manage to get the kids to school, Surely, I wouldn't have volunteered to come here, but apparently that was the job. So the mission was laid out for me. And so the first thing was that I had to learn about to come into my soul. But that word, that just meant something you had on the bottom of your shoe. People would never, ever discuss that. It's like there was no language at all to take us forward where we are today. So much like the word consciousness, and we talk about energy, and we talk about quantum fields. None of that was in language. And because English wasn't my first language in the first place, I was very particular about words and what they meant and how they, had. But just talking about language, when I was about, I guess, 7 years old, so that was in the time between when the Nazis had left the occupied Holland, and before we took off to go to Indonesia, I used to lie in my bed and I used to think I was speaking English. Now, I didn't know anything about English. I never heard it, and I used to lie in my bed going, I don't know what I was saying. And I was a very introverted child, so I hardly ever spoke outside of my bedroom. And so I would just have this communication with people. I could see that I was talking to a lot of people and using this so-called language. So the destiny was always in there. When I look back and I go, oh, you had it all sorted out for me, And so then when I went on this journey in 1987 and needing to find language to express what was going on and what was being related to me from the most bizarre places. I mean, I have quite a story to tell, but and learning to sculpt that language. And as I said to you before, we are in the same place now because we are about to evolve into a whole new experience of ourselves. And that self has no relationship to the old. It is completely renewed. We are being reset. And in this new self, in this new earth, we are all one. We eliminate out of our conception the idea that we're separate or different. I will see us like flowers of the tree of life. Okay, we are all flowers, uniquely different, but from the same tree. And we have this thing, we love nature, and we go out and we look at flowers and we go, isn't that flower beautiful? And isn't that flower beautiful? And isn't that? And then we look at each other and we have only judgment. And I go, but we are a flower. We are this, so I guess I said to you before, it's about having these three questions is, who am I? And for me, once I got to soul level, the answer was and is, I am an individuated expression of this field of consciousness that creates life. And so are you, and so is everyone else.
That's
which
right.
has the powers of life. And and there is no egoic defense for that or comparison for that. And you talked about defense. I always think that people who feel the need to defend themselves somewhere inside are frightened that it might be true. Otherwise you wouldn't need to defend it, right? And so that's for me is always something that I encourage people not to need to do. Do not defend, do not justify, just express from love, and that's all that is necessary. Right?
Yeah.
So beautiful new language that we're forming, and
That's
so
great.
much to say, so much to unpack, so much to share.
There is. Yeah, my own realizations has been that language really governs our conscience, and not our consciousness, but it has the capacity to limit our ability to perceive reality. And like you, having been raised in a different language, in a Germanic language, as a young child, it's only when I was like 33 or 34 when it was actually Sophia that just kind of blared it into my being, because I was resisting that. I was actually having the way that I relate to people speaking is that I see images and I feel feelings, and that's my first language, and I always just thought that everybody was doing it like that until it got made very clear to me that it doesn't happen for everybody like that, because I was kind of like denying my own gifts and my own talents around language, and my gifts of being able to feel the imagery of what on a sense felt level the cells are bringing forward, and particularly in relationship to this whole new earth living. And it was around the time, it must have been 2010 or something, when I started the New Earth Sanctuaries project and really started getting into allowing myself to play with the language and to become more free around it, because I was getting all these images, but I would have to come up with the words myself, because I couldn't find in this noun-based, in this kind of still and stagnant English format. I wasn't actually able to find the verbing that was required to make it a living metric. And my fortunate journeys have led me to many indigenous peoples around the world, from which I then gleaned that heart-based living and that heart-based languaging was very much a living language. It was a languaging of experiences and places and things around them that were in process. They were active, they were moving, they were living. And it's a whole different way to relate to language then we've been brought down with the English version. But just because English is a limiting kind of syntax form, because it's a contract and commerce based kind of codex that really got put together by Sir Francis Bacon just to make empire possible on the earth for must have been Queen Elizabeth II at the time. He was commissioned to take all the dialects of all the English speaking peoples that wasn't actually English at the time at all. It was just Gaelic and all sorts of different variants. And he sat together with a whole bunch of, I guess, linguistic programmers that decided what was going to be what. And then they had to shove that down through the programming over the next 2 generations to get that to stick. And then they wanted it to stick as far as that it became the world language, which, inadvertently it has become. But just because it got programmed in a certain way doesn't mean that we have to stick with that. We can make up our own words.
Oh, but that's not the future of language, though. I mean, in the new earth that we're going to, we will not be verbal.
I love it.
And that is already happening. I mean, for me, I read energy. So what comes out of your mouth, I can hear, but it's not what I interpret. I can feel you over and above the words you speak. So if somebody says to me, I'm feeling this or that, and it isn't what I'm reading, I just look at them and go, really? So glass cabinets to me, I just, I sense people's energy. It is so clear, and that is where we're going. We're going to be telepathic, and we're doing that more and more anyhow. We're going to be telepathic, and we're going to be transparent energetically.
Yeah.
And that is going to be absolutely beautiful, because when we have transparency, there is nothing to hide. There is nothing to pretend. There is nothing to defend or justify or compare. There is just authenticity and truth. And after all, isn't that what we all seek? Isn't that what we're always looking for? Authenticity and the freedom to walk naked, as I say. The freedom to walk naked. It's so amazing to me that one of the greatest joys at the moment, that your pal Sash is on about the scalar readings, is which really made me smile, because when I had all these downloads, one of the first things that I was given was a spiral of frequency. And over 35 years ago, and in fact it's in my book here, and it's just, only I have it this way up, and where can I see that? Well, that way. Yes. So it is this understanding that whatever vibration you allow yourself to express in, and the more that we understand ourselves as energy beings rather than these bits of flesh and blood, which, hey, I love my bit of flesh and blood because it allows me to have this wonderful conversation with you. So I adore me. And people laugh at me because I say, I am so in love with me. And they, once upon a time, oh, she must be up herself. No, not at all. I'm so in love with me because without me, there is no life. There is no conversation with Souvereign. There is no hugging my grandchildren, right? So what's not to love about that? It just gives me everything. So, no, I've lost my train of thought. So this ability to be able to express yourself on an energetic level, when we can feel ourselves energetically, we know inside when we zig, when we should have zagged, as you say, when you don't listen to the messages and bang, there you go. I had a huge automobile accident in December 2019 because I was taking myself somewhere that was absolutely not in alignment with my mission, and I wasn't listening. I was far too distracted to listen, and so wham, it stopped me short. And so, once you sign up to wake up, once you sign up to live your mission consciously, there's very little margin for error. And so for me, I've just learned to surrender. Look, here I am. Where are we going? What are we doing? I'm excited, but I'm also fairly demanding, because I'm willing to live my life path. But when I stub my toe, it hurts, and I know the unseen beings don't. So take care of me, right? I take care of the mission. You take care of the instrument for the mission. And so this lovely co-creative, cooperative language that then occurs between soul and between the persona, where you become one. And I think that is the ultimate journey we're on, is when the persona and the soul become one and have just one intention. And there is no separation anymore.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's very, very wonderful to see and witness that what is coming out all around us. And of course, as a deductive human being, I always think that everything is new. Really, all we're discovering is what already exists and has existed ever since creation began. And
we are revealing, really. It's constant revelation. We are revealing all the time. Yeah. Just something I wanted to, when you're talking about trauma, I had a fairly traumatic start to life. And look, there are a lot of people who had worse. But and that my parents weren't aware of. So my mother lost 99% of her family were exterminated in Auschwitz. And my mother's trauma she carried in her body her whole life. And so she was sickly her whole life. And so that really gave me a lesson, a physical, expression of what trauma can do. And all of those things were placed in my life for me to see and to learn from and to make decisions from. And I became very discerning about that is not how I would choose to live my life. And I learned so much from her suffering and from my father's suffering, who just closed down. So it's so interesting about what trauma can do. And so I allowed the trauma to totally swallow me up until about the age of 11 and a half, 12, when something occurred in my life that made me suddenly fight back. And I was such a victim. But, and I wrote about that, I think, today, that there isn't no victim. Yeah. There is just what you allow. And there are so many people in the world at the moment that feel victimized. But it's only because you say yes to it. If we would really, and this is what we talk about so much, your sovereignty, say no. This is my life. It's my gift from whatever you want to call that, Father, Mother, God, quantum field. It is my gift, and don't mess with it. That's how I look at it. And I know that sounds a bit frivolous, and it isn't. But it is that ability to recognize the value of life itself that we've been given, and to take care of it. We have been so programmed to think that the most important thing is to pay bills, to have money. And we sell our soul for that. We sell our health for that. Sell our freedom for that. When really, when we understand that this is life living in us and through us, and when we align with that and we allow that its full expression, we're always supported. We're never in lack.
Yeah.
And so I find, for me, there are days that I feel weary because I have walked this past a fair time. And I'd love to share this with you. I was watching in the beginning of 2020, there was a big demonstration, I think somewhere in London, and I was watching it, and there was this elderly, I don't ever see myself as elderly, I think it's a terrible word, but a woman of age, and she had a walking stick, and she was carrying a placard, right? And she was walking along, and on the placard it said, "I will walk for you just a little longer." And I went, yes, that's me. That's me. Okay, I'll walk for you just a little longer. And that's what we're doing. You know, we are walking the walk so people have the courage, you know, and to join us. And isn't it wonderful how many more people keep joining us all the time?
It is great. Yeah, it's a very natural process, and I was very pleased that I followed my kind of divine push to create the Brave New Life community ecosystem, and where we now have our own little private Facebook where it's all about sharing our feelings and being able to freely and openly express what feels relevant, and so much, you know, promote some sort of new awareness that needs to wake people up. Like, what if we had a container where everybody is already on their own journey and doesn't need wakening up? What then are we going to be sharing around? And because it's, for me, it's about what are the new earth life ways? What are those life ways that are accessible to us? Well, but they're not going to come about until we start living them, until we start actually relating in that orientation that is enhancing and nurturing and cultivating a space for human relating. I call it syntropic human ecology. The acronym is SHE. I really like it.
I love that language. So beautiful.
It is retrieved so much over the past years through syntropic agroforestry to then be willing to apply that in because it is a social experiment, and yet without cultivating the experiment and seeing how we actually do this, how does this actually work? Everybody comes in with their opinions, and everybody is encouraged to kind of drop their opinions, and yet they're still there, and so we've been going now for about 8 months, and I see that what is sprouting up and what is being empowered in our community that is predominantly online is that now there's all these pods starting people's places where they are being encouraged, because it's not about, you know, this is a brand and this is a thing that you can go to. No, this is your brave new life, and that starts when we make a choice that it is. And that has, of course, to do with our free will, then to harness our will capacity. I don't say willpower, because I think that that's been a bit of a co-opted word in my own.
No, that's power over. We don't need that. No, but you know, I contacted you because I had this dream of creating a new earth sanctuary, and then of course you sent me back an email and word for word everything that I had as a vision, and which made me smile. And the idea was that I would find, you know, land down here, and I had this beautiful vision, I still do, of creating a place. But the other day I was, as you know, I have these Monday morning brekkies that I have for my local community. And I was sitting there looking at them all, and it was just amazing. The energy we create is just infectious, and it's a wonderful way to start a week. But I was sitting there looking at them, and I'm thinking, you know what? I don't need a place. I'm in it. This is it. And so when I listen to Brave New Life, you know, because I rush home and then connect to you guys, again, this is the place. We are doing it. We are being it already. And yes, we will find our, you know, our hubs of where we will create sanctuaries, because I do believe that as people awaken, they're going to be incredibly traumatized. I've been at this for 35 years, so I've had time to to integrate and to alchemize my traumas. And just on that, you're never going to be free of your traumas until you bring them into your heart with love and gratitude for what they offered you.
Yeah, it's always
that's the only way that it'll lose its power. And so denying it and resisting it and being angry with it, none of that helps, And when people say to me, "Oh, I've dealt with that," I'm going, "Oh gosh, duck," because there's no dealing with it. There is just alchemizing it into your heart and saying, "Thank you. I have become more as a result of that." So, that's something. But, and there are going to be so many traumatized people when they wake up to what's really been going on for thousands of years and what they have said yes to, that sanctuaries are going to be necessary and we will build them. But right now, we're building the foundations through the communities that we are creating. And that, to me, is just... that's what keeps me going every day, because that's the sign that we are moving forward and we're moving out of this. So
communities from within.
Yeah,
it is such and it's, for me, recognizing that this new earth, it starts with me. So the new earth beginning with you and with every individual. It's onto our own navigation as self-sovereign human beings. It's our capacity to become a conductor of that new metric and a participant. And it takes action, but it really takes willingness to then also look at what is all holding us, in the sound of it, back from actually stepping into this. And in that, I recognize that we require courage, and we benefit being encouraged because of our social ecology. We're social creatures. We're feeling-based beings. And for me, recognizing that through the study of human ecology and syntropy and putting these pieces together, I realized, wow, this is such an opportunity now when the pressures are also kind of building up to create more connection. It'd be foolish of me to just kind of say, well, maybe I'll don't really, and so, because there's a lot involved in putting it together, and yet now it's really humming and it's resonating quite beautifully, and it's starting to have a life of its own, where everybody's own brave new life becomes something that they embody, that they claim, that they own, and they're stepping out, and it's so beautiful and it's so humbling, because I'm a free human being. I speak freely. I'm rather fearless. There's very little residue here in these cells, but it's so humbling to be on an equal playing field with everybody in this garden space, and to have people be on the call that are there already for 3 months or 2 months or 4 months or however long, and they choose for the first time to speak. And it just reminds me again and again of the beauty that we are by just being who we are, by holding space, and that everybody has their own process, everybody has their own timing, and that there's no shortcuts in life with this. And it allows me to recognize that the big transformation on a kind of global scale is contained in what we're doing, because it's not from here and this and just get you shit to, no, these are parts of self that were suppressed, repressed, denied for decades, and all of a sudden we're going to be expecting for people to it's just a distorted fantasy. And I love how we're doing it. Simplicity of listening.
I agree, and it's such a privilege. I get up every morning. I feel so privileged, to have been given this mission, even though I resigned many times because I was all too hard. but I'm still...
I know that one. Yeah.
I'm walking down the beach screaming, going, "I'm not doing it. I'm out of here. Scotty beat me up." But I'm here. I had to laugh when you said it takes courage. Look, it's not for the faint-hearted. It takes an enormous amount of courage to be self-revealing and self-discovering. But what makes me smile is that this universe has a great sense of humor. So about 16 years ago, it moved me from my abode to a new abode in a little place called Courageous Court. So whenever someone's looking for me and I give them the address, they just laugh and they go, "You couldn't have made that one up." And I go, "No."
That's so cute.
So that is really lovely. But
yeah, courage really
happened.
coming from courage, which is the French word of the heart, and it's like enheartening. To encourage other people is to really enhearten them, to strengthen their heart field, which is something that in my own experience has had so much cloudedness and so much story, and so many shut down, I could almost call them valves. Like, my goodness, the story that I could tell about how I've learned to read the alphabet of my human heart and to understand the archetypal nature of human consciousness as the images actually come from that place. I learned that the images come from the heart as an intelligence and a source point of my own beingness. But that was in the spiritual nice dimension, in this happy place of like, wow, lovely images coming out of my heart, and look at how spiritual I am. So it kind of got co-opted by my own little spiritual ego, which all performed its own function so that I could become aware of that. But it's been a humbling journey to become soft, loving, and kind, and thinking of how I have had opportunities to forelive that with others by being soft and operating in loving kindness, and that those life ways are not seeming to be greatly transformative, but they're the ones that are most prosperous in their own silence, in their own existence, without them being again, there's either an industrial way of doing things that is forceful and dominating, or there is that surrendering and that letting go, which allows me then tune back into the syntropic nature of life, that I'm here to evolve me and raise my frequency of my being. And in doing so, I come home to self, to love, to wholeness more and more and more. And what happens is that my expression of life becomes a different tonality, a different frequency. Different things become more relevant to me than they were in the past. And I could have never imagined that from the mind space, because I've never been able to see past my own choices. It's until I make that choice to stop doing something or to get really committed to revealing and to being transparent and authentic. It's until I made that choice that a whole new world was opening up. And courage in that, this journey is not for the faint-hearted. I love it. And yet we all have a heart, and we all have that.
We do. However, what I'm very, very much aware of is that we need both sides. We need the heart-connected, soul-connected ones that open up and show people with softness and with love. But we also need the spiritual warriors to do the hard yards. Because for me, I look out and I go, well, I'm so grateful that my role is not the one on the front line doing that, because we need both at the moment. We need those who are standing firm and are saying no for those who are not willing or able or aware to say no. So we do need the spiritual warriors, and I'm grateful for them every day of my life. And I'm also grateful that that is not my role at the present time, although there is a spiritual warrior in here that every now and then wants to rear its head and go, I'd like to punch someone's lights out, but it's not my essence. So that would make it, that would harm me more than it would do good. And I so understand that. But I am very aware that at the present time, we need both sides, and they both have to come from the same source. And that is following spirit without hesitation, following your soul path. We've all here for a reason. Everyone who is on this planet at this time has their life path and their purpose. And so when you truly follow that, and you know that your path is to go to war, and I don't mean war as such, but spiritual war, and your path and my path is to open the gateway to the new earth and to show that the fight is worth it, right? Yeah. That the fight is worth it. So that we open the gate and we go, this is the new earth. This is how, this is how human ecology can continue to thrive and expand. And that's our role. That's your role. That's been my role. And it is a joy to see it come to fruition after all of these years of me. When I first started, I was one of those crazy new age people. People thought that I had either joined a cult or gone insane. But and my children called me the bush basher, because it was like one of these things that, I was just I was a bit of a warrior those days. But it was also really, getting rid of my traumas and to peel away all that programming and all that stuff that was layer upon layer of things that did not serve me, that I had automatically just said yes to. And so once, it's such a wonderful metamorphosis to watch, isn't it? When people start to, when the caterpillar starts to change and you see the first bit of the butterfly come, and it's so beautiful to see how many butterflies we have emerging every day. The butterflies of humanity is just magnificent, and we're here to watch it and to nurture it. And for me, I'm the eternal mother, and so I'm people's soul mama, and I find that role is just resonates with me so much. And I'm just there to nurture. This is my role now, is to nurture everyone into this new earth. And it's just such a beautiful thing and such a wonderful privilege that really just makes me hum every day.
Yeah. Wow. I'm humming with you, Yvonne. Such a nice conversation.
Yes.
It's so beautiful that we can share space and speak to this, because that's ultimately what I've really learned, is what we have is to cast our dreaming, to dream wisely with the words that we put into the field. And that allows me to remember more of me and how to step and be in that more. And I feel my cells are humming, and that is beautiful.
Our souls are dancing.
Yay. Yvonne, it's at the top of the hour, and I feel that this is just a beautiful place to leave it off for now.
Yes.
I'm feeling really good about doing this again. Well, we had a lot of comments going on about the gratitude and the appreciation, and so many people feeling so nice about it. And of course, it's many of the people that are in Australia at the moment. And so we're connecting up more and more people. And if anybody wants to get connected with what we're doing in our weekly communications, and they can also find you, of course, on Facebook.
Yes, on Facebook.
Here a few times.
I don't have a website. I have to laugh because I did have one, but it got hacked and someone got into it and totally destroyed it. And it was funny because I'd already thought, my website has absolutely nothing to do with who I am today. And so that was done for me. And my soul has not said, Yes, that I need another one. I just, I had a YouTube channel and I was doing videos regularly. And March 2020 is the last video I did. And I was told, no more YouTube clips. You need to write daily. I go, okay. So that's what I do.
Yep.
And so, following spirit without hesitation. But I am available on Facebook, and you can find me on Brave New Life if you look. and thank you for allowing me to post my daily musings there, because that's great. The more people that we can reach, the sooner we have this new earth alive.
Yay. Nice. I'll put your little profile there of the community as well in here, which is something that we normally don't really put out publicly, simply because we're aware that we want to just take it nice and slow. But
Yeah.
thank you for being here and joining me, and thank you for.
Thank you. I just, the minute I listened to you, I knew there was a connection. We just had so many things that were similar in our backgrounds, which was just lovely. And I feel very privileged to have the connection.
Well, Yvonne, you are very much cherished in our community and in my world, and I really hope that there's going to be a time at some point soon where we can engage in the physical. That'd be brilliant.
Absolutely. I know
Yeah.
that will happen. Yes,
Nice.
Bali is waiting. I'm waiting to just, that's another story we can share another day, what my experience in Bali has been.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Suksama.
Suksama. Yay. Ciao, everyone.